Good evening and welcome to California Today. I'm Bill Thomas and here's a preview of some of today's stories. California is stocking up on abortion pills. The state insists on keeping its abortion sanctuary status as a judge tries to restrict access to the drug. Whole Foods closed their downtown San Francisco store yesterday due to safety concerns. This comes as the city's rise in crime and the recent murder of a high-profile tech executive highlights a growing need for improving public safety. And a newly elected Democrat has just been removed from her committee assignment for voting against the governor's new law aimed at punishing oil companies. She was the only Democrat to cast a no vote. California is stockpiling an abortion medication. The move comes after a U.S. district judge in Texas ordered the FDA to pause approval of the drug.
Governor Gavin Newsom announced on Monday that California secured an emergency stockpile of 2 million misoprostol pills, a commonly used abortion medication. This comes after a Texas judge sought to block access to mifepristone, another abortion pill. In a statement, Newsom said, "We will not cave to extremists who are trying to outlaw these critical abortion services. Medication abortion remains legal in California." On Friday, U.S. District Judge Matthew Kaczmarek ordered a federal approval to stop the FDA from approving mifepristone. It would remove the drug from pharmacy shelves across the country. The FDA first approved mifepristone in 2000, which is taken with misoprostol.
Speaking of abortion pills, California's governor is backtracking on an announcement from last month. He originally said the state will end business relations with Walgreens due to abortion medication access in other states. But the recent reversal comes as his office confirmed that a federal Medicaid statute prohibits him from doing so.
California will continue business with Walgreens by paying about $1.5 billion annually to the state's Medicaid program. This comes about a month after California Governor Gavin Newsom tweeted that the state is done doing business with Walgreens over the chain's decision to not distribute the abortion pill mifepristone in states where it's illegal. And on March 8th, the governor's office put out a statement saying the state is, quote, pulling back its renewal of a multi-million-dollar contract with Walgreens. But Kaiser Health News reported that health law experts said California is bound by federal law to, quote, continue doing business with Walgreens through the state's massive Medicaid program. Newsom's office confirmed that it will, quote, continue to comply. Newsom spokesman Anthony York told Kaiser Health News that, quote, tweeting is not policy, and that Walgreens was invited to renew the $54 million contract. York also said that the contract wasn't renewed, but Walgreens, quote, may seek future procurement opportunities. Jason Blair, NTD News, California.
The San Francisco Fire Department responded to a one-alarm fire on Sunday night. A dozen buses were burning under a bridge in the city's Potrero Hill neighborhood.
Shortly after 10 o'clock this evening, multiple 911 calls came in reporting heavy fire and smoke visible within this location.
Fire officials said a total of 12 minibuses were damaged. Authorities contained the fire late Sunday night and no injuries were reported. The cause is still under investigation. Whole Foods closed their flagship location in San Francisco on Monday due to safety concerns. Many social media videos of brazen crime and the recent murder of a high-profile tech executive have brought the issue of public safety into the spotlight once again.
After being open for just over a year, Whole Foods has closed its downtown San Francisco store on Monday due to crime. The store is located near Civic Center, just about a block from an area many dubbed to be a 24-hour open-air drug market. The SF Standard reported that a Whole Foods spokesperson said the closing isn't a permanent decision, and that, quote, if we feel we can ensure the safety of our team members in the store, we will evaluate a reopening. The closing comes less than a week after tech founder Bob Lee was found stabbed and murdered and brings up issues of crime and safety in the city. San Francisco Supervisor Matt Dorsey, whose district includes the area of the Whole Foods, tweeted that he is disappointed but sadly unsurprised about the news. He said, quote, our neighborhood waited a long time for this supermarket, but we're also well aware of problems they've experienced with drug-related retail theft, adjacent drug markets, and the many safety issues related to them. He added he's working on legislation with Supervisor Catherine Stephanie to get the San Francisco police fully staffed within 5 years. Jason Blair, NTD News, San Francisco.
A newly elected Democrat has just been removed from a state assembly committee. Her removal came shortly after she voted against the governor's new law aimed at punishing oil companies.
Newly elected Assemblywoman Jasmeet Bains represents a small community in Central California. The region produces about 70% of the state's oil. Bains made clear her support for oil produced in California at the start of this year's legislative session. But California's governor says oil companies rip off consumers and hide profits. Bains was removed from the Assembly Business and Professions Committee after voting. She responded in a statement, "While I am disappointed, I remain firm in my commitment to serve the interests of the people I was elected to represent." The law easily passed due to the Democratic Party's stronghold on politics in the state. It will create new regulations and extensive oversight for oil companies. Critics, including industry insiders, say it will likely lead to higher prices at the pump and doesn't address ongoing supply challenges.
Speaking of the oil industry, producers in the Middle East recently announced cuts to oil production and exports. Unfortunately for Californians, this could mean higher prices at the pump this summer. Petroleum industry experts say the state is reliant on imported oil, which makes gas supply and prices vulnerable to fluctuations in foreign production.
Californians can expect to see higher prices at the pump this summer. That's according to industry experts. This is because Middle Eastern oil producers are cutting production. The Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, or OPEC, announced the move on April 3rd. A handful of countries include Russia and Saudi Arabia. They intend to cut production by 1.4 million barrels a day starting next month. California imports most of its oil from OPEC and other countries. Last year, the state imported almost 59% of its oil from other countries. Although the cuts won't occur until next month, California's gas prices have already been rising again recently. The average price was $4.87 on April 7th. According to AAA, that's slightly higher than last week's average of $4.83. Last year at this time, Californians were paying an average of $5.96 at the pump. The CEO of California Independent Petroleum Association told the Epoch Times, "For decades, state-elected leaders have purposely made California dependent on foreign oil. This comes at the expense of our residents and workers, and we continue to pay for this decision every time we go to the pump." Other industry experts also say the state could see an uptake in costs at the pump, but the prices won't be as drastic as last summer's prices.
A bill supporting transitional kindergarten teachers continues to advance through the state assembly. If passed, the bill would give teachers involved in the program more time to earn their teaching credentials.
State legislators in the Assembly's Education Committee voted unanimously on March 30th to approve a bill that would give transitional kindergarten teachers more time to earn teaching credentials. According to the state of California, transitional kindergarten is part of the K-12 public school system. It is the first year of a 2-year kindergarten program that uses a modified curriculum that is age and developmentally appropriate. The bill was introduced by Democratic Assemblywoman Sharon Quirk Silva in February. If passed, the bill would give those who teach transitional kindergarten classes 2 extra years to earn their teaching qualifications. To qualify, a teacher must either complete 24 units in early childhood education, earn a child development teacher permit, or early childhood education specialist credential, or they can prove they have adequate experience teaching preschool-age children. These requirements are part of the $2.7 billion Universal Transitional Kindergarten Plan that Governor Gavin Newsom unveiled in his 2021-22 state budget. The state plans to offer transitional kindergarten classes to all 4-year-olds across the state by the 2025-26 school year. At the hearing, only one education organization, the Association of California Administrators, supported the bill. There was no one present that opposed the bill. The bill will now be reviewed by the Assembly Appropriations Committee in the coming weeks. If passed, the bill would apply to all transitional kindergarten teachers hired after July 1st, 2015.
A pilot program is allowing low-income residents to use Interstate 880's express lanes at a discount. The new plan is said to be the first of its kind in the country.
The Metropolitan Transportation Commission kicked off its Express Lanes START program on Tuesday, which they say is the first of its kind in the country. Bay Area residents whose household income falls within this chart can start sending in applications. It's based on 200% of the federal poverty level. Individuals with household income of roughly $29,000 can qualify. For a family of 4, a max income of up to $60,000 can qualify. Qualified solo drivers will receive a 50% discount, whereas 2-person carpools receive a 75% discount. For travelers of 3 or more, it's toll-free. The program intends to help more travelers use the express lanes in Alameda County. It's only applicable for I-880 express lanes and not other freeways or bridge tolls. More information can be found at expresslanesstart.org.
We'll take a short break now, but here's a look at what we have for you when we come back. More disagreements are happening between LA's school district and the local teachers union. The district plans to shorten winter break, but the union is demanding that the district rescind their plans. Thousands of blue, oval-like creatures are washing up on beaches. Experts say they do sting, but they're not as poisonous as their jellyfish cousins. And beekeepers are working hard to keep their bees alive following this season's series of storms. One Central Valley farmer says the future looks hopeful and sweet. Those stories and more coming up on California Today. Welcome back to California Today. I'm your host, Bill Thomas. The Los Angeles Unified School District announced at the end of last month that winter break would be shortened significantly. But now the United Teachers of Los Angeles is demanding that the district rescind their plans.
The Los Angeles Unified School District, or LAUSD, announced on March 27th plans to shorten winter break from 3 weeks to only 2 weeks. This shorter break will apply to the 2024-25 and 2025-26 school years. But in response, the United Teachers of Los Angeles, or UTLA, filed an unfair practice charge with the California Public Employee Relations Board. The union, which represents over 35,000 teachers, filed a cease and desist letter demanding the district rescind its plans. According to union leaders, the district is required to negotiate with union representatives before making changes to the academic calendar. The letter states, quote, "The district's adoption of multiple calendars with total lack of notice or opportunity to bargain and the timing of this action reek of anti-employee animus and retaliatory motivation." But the district maintains that it does not need to bargain with the UTLA while creating its calendar, since the number of instructional days and hours are unchanged. In an email to the Epoch Times, a spokesperson for the LAUSD says, quote, "In response to the latest unfair practice charge from the UTLA, the development and approval of the instructional calendar is at the sole discretion of the superintendent and the Board of Education." The LAUSD also says that the district held 2 meetings with labor partners to discuss the impacts of employee work hours and the recommendation to shorten the winter recess. But the UTLA only sent a representative to one of those meetings.
Speaking of schools, California public schools are still trying to recover from a decline in student enrollment since returning to in-person classes. The state's education department recently released data showing that enrollment is down by another 40,000 students this school year.
The California Department of Education, or CDE, gathered data from more than 900 school districts, 58 county offices of education, and around 1,300 charter schools. According to the new CDE report, enrollment for 2022 and 2023 was about 5.85 million, down about 40,000 or 2/3% from the previous academic year. Data from 2021 and 2022 showed a statewide decline of 1.84% from the year before that, or about 110,000 students. In an article published in Education Week last December, Los Angeles Unified School District Superintendent Alberto Carvalho said, "School districts are still facing a barrage of challenges from pandemic disruptions, and many leaders find themselves in a paralyzing predicament where solutions are no longer straightforward or even accessible. Karlsson says that this year, as part of their efforts to address learning loss, his district is focusing on chronic absenteeism, closing the digital divide, expanding tutoring opportunities, and boosting instructional time. Despite the challenges faced during virtual learning, Governor Gavin Newsom insists it was the best decision during the pandemic. Newsom said in a statement, while California's students experienced less learning loss than those in most other states during the pandemic, these results are not a celebration but a call to action. Students are struggling academically, and we need to keep getting them the resources they need to thrive. California was the first state to close all in-person classes beginning from March 2020 during the pandemic.
Thousands of blue, oval-like creatures are washing up on beaches along the West Coast. Experts say they're related to jellyfish, but they're not as poisonous.
Blue jellyfish-like blobs are washing up on the coast. They have shown up on the beaches of Dana Point and Point Reyes National Seashore. They're called Velella, also known as by-the-wind sailors. When they are in the water, the wind blows them around, giving them their name. Each organism is made of colonies. Like jellyfish and Portuguese man-o'-war, they also sting, but not as painful as their relatives. They eat algae and zooplankton, and ocean sunfish eat Velella.
The season's series of storms may have hit beekeepers hard, but their honey outlook is still sweet. Here's how one bee farmer in the Central Valley is faring.
During California's prolonged wet winter, beekeeper Gene Brandy in Los Baños said he had to spend twice as much money on a sugary syrup to feed his honeybees and keep them alive.
Normally we have to feed some of our hives in almonds every year, but this year we had to do a lot more feeding because the bees were not able to fly, and we just want to make sure that they don't starve to death on us.
That's because the bees sent to pollinate blooming almond orchards took longer than usual to emerge from their hives due to chilly temperatures, wind, and rain. Since the bees weren't out gathering nectar and pollen for nourishment, the 71-year-old beekeeper had to provide food for them.
We have a hole drilled on top of every hive cover that we can invert a can into and feed them that way, give them a gallon of sugar syrup to make sure that they don't starve.
It's one of the many challenges America's beekeepers face following the unusually wet winter that ravaged California's farm country, which feeds much of the nation.
Along with the rain and the snow came cold weather, and some of that cold weather was right during peak almond bloom in our part of the state. And the bees actually didn't fly significantly for 8.5 days in late February and early March. So that kept them from pollinating almonds.
Most commercial beekeepers send their bees to California early in the year to help pollinate the state's $5 billion a year almond crop. They then move the bees elsewhere to pollinate commodities ranging from avocados to cherries or to the Midwest to produce honey. Almond trees depend on bees for cross-pollination, and bees in turn feed on almond pollen, which helps sustain the hives throughout the bloom. While many people keep bees as a hobby, commercial beekeepers may have hundreds of hives and relocate their bees to pollinate various crops in distinct seasons. Almond growers say it's too soon to know if the delay in the bees' emergence will hurt the state's nut crop. According to the Almond Board of California, about 80% of the world's almonds come from the state.
Our expenses are higher. Like I say, the feed is higher, fuel is higher. Our queen bees are more expensive now than they used to be, but it's a cost of doing business. And like I say, we're very optimistic that we'll be able to make some honey this year.
There may be a sweet spot for California beekeepers, as the rain is expected to bring a burst of spring wildflowers, which could provide ample forage for bees and potentially translate into a good year for honey.
It has the makings of a great year. It should be a great year for honey in California.
Brandy said he'll take his hives to coastal areas this spring so bees can forage on a native plant to make sage honey, a premium product that he can only make every few years when there's ample rain. After that, Brandy, who sells honey to Bay Area buyers and a Midwest honey packer who supplies Costco, said his bees will head onward to feed other plants and make more honey.
Let's check in now with NTD's Tyler Castillo for today's Sports Roundup, where hockey history has just been made.
Welcome, I'm Tyler Castillo and I'm taking you through the California Today Sports Roundup. Defenseman Erik Karlsson reached 100 points this season with 25 goals and 75 assists in 80 games, but couldn't spark his team to a victory as host Winnipeg beat San Jose. Karlsson got his second goal of the game on the power play in the third period, getting San Jose back within 2. This goal was Karlsson's 100th point of the season, making him the 6th defenseman to ever reach 100 points in a single season in NHL history. He's also the first since Brian Leetch during the 1992 season, a full 31 years ago. Karlsson is also the oldest defenseman to get his first 100-point season at the age of 32. Logan Couture also reached 700 NHL career points with an assist on Karlsson's first goal of the matchup. Jets 6, Sharks 2. Jonas Korpisalo made 20 saves and Los Angeles ended a 3-game losing streak with a win against visiting Vancouver. It was Korpisalo's first regular season shutout since he played for the Columbus Blue Jackets. Arthur Calif, Vladislav Gavrikov, and Drew Doughty scored for Los Angeles, which regained 3rd place in the Pacific Division only by 2 points over the Seattle Kraken, with 1 game left for the Kings and 2 for the Kraken. Colin Delia made 25 saves for the Canucks, who were aiming to win 3 in a row. Kings 3, Canucks 0. Max Muncy busted out a season-long slump with a grand slam and a 3-run home run. Julio Rios threw 6 sharp innings and Los Angeles opened a 3-game road series by pounding San Francisco. Muncy also singled, all after Mookie Betts led off the game with a 2nd homer of the season for the Dodgers, who snapped a 3-game losing streak. Rios limited the Giants to 1 run and 4 hits. He walked 2 and struck out 8. Wilmer Flores homered for the Giants, his 2nd of the year, but couldn't prevent a 3rd loss in the last 4 games for San Francisco. Dodgers 9, Giants 1. Thanks for tuning in to the California Today Sports Roundup.
That's all we have for you tonight, and would like you to join us again on California Today every weekday right here at 8:30 p.m. Also, make sure to check out our broadcasts on our California Today webpage, and you can find that at ntd.com/California-Today. You can also find all of our top latest clips there ready to share with friends and family. And if you could, please send us a message on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram, or through our email, and that's california.today@ntd.com. I'm Bill Thomas, and for all of us here in the newsroom, have a great night.